Thank you so much, Daryl. And thank you for the panelists for that. It's tremendous to hear. And as I mentioned in the chat, we were part of a push to pass the racial profiling bill in California, which is now law, and it's in its, I believe, fifth year of being implemented. And one of our colleagues, Ken Barone, just testified today uh, in front of Congress, and they're going to be putting. It looks like they're going to be putting more money in for implementation of those laws. So we can work across the country and in different states to support each other. We've often done that with building bridges because those outside voices are very helpful to keep us on the path and to challenge us and to show us different ways of doing things. So thank you so much. So we're now going to move on to the quick fire advocacy updates. We have Molly Shapiro, Yale University undergraduate, who's been a tremendous assistance with us with the Connecticut Reentry Collaborative. You may have seen her at the Reentry Advocacy Forums. You may have worked with her putting together the proposals. And we also have Timothy Coble from ACLU. They're just going to give us a few minutes here of updates on things that are happening around the state legislature and otherwise. We've heard a bunch during the day already, and then we're going to go into the wrap up and closing statements. So Molly, I'll start with you, and just let me know what you want me to do in terms of sharing.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, and a huge credit to Daryl and Andrew for this incredibly inspiring conference, and to everyone who's been a panelist and participant. Andrew, whatever you would like to share, maybe the c2reentry.org website or the guide I sent you. So as Andrew mentioned, my name is Molly Shapiro. I've been working with the Connecticut Reentry Collaborative Policy Working Group, which we created this year. It's made up of service providers and advocates from the 10 reentry roundtables, and our goal is to consolidate and coordinate our advocacy efforts around reentry issues at the state legislature. So we put together our 2021 reentry priorities, which we've been having several forums to promote and discuss. We have had two already, one on employment, the other to launch a the general forums, and upcoming this Thursday, which is tomorrow at 6 p.m. is our forum on housing. So we've chosen these three issues of housing, employment, and voting rights in reentry to focus on, and each has a corresponding legislation that we're seeking to promote and advocate for. All of these pieces of legislation have been worked on by advocacy groups such as ACLU, CATAL, Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, Connect, and many others, and we've tried to support their efforts in whatever way we can and leverage our reentry networks. So I can just briefly overview the legislation we're supporting. The first is Clean Slate, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's been introduced many times before and seeks to automatically expunge the records of individuals upon release after a certain amount of time has passed for certain categories of crime. The anti-discrimination in employment legislation, we are also working to support anti-discrimination in housing legislation, with which CCEH is spearheading. This would prevent landlords from issuing blanket denials of applicants on the basis of their criminal records, and also require them to conduct individualized assessments that take into account many factors, such as the time that's passed since one's conviction. We're also looking to solidify state funding and support for a reentry housing assistance program that was started during COVID-19 by CCEH in conjunction with DOC. And finally, restoration of voting rights for individuals upon release, which I think actually just made great progress in the New York legislature. So we're hoping to have similar success in Connecticut. So obviously that was a mouthful, and we hope that you'll join us in this advocacy and listen to the incredible people we've had, such as Daryl, talk about their experiences and their work advocating, and Gus, who I now see here. But thank you all for listening. And if you're interested in more information on how to take action, I can drop some links in the chat or send them along to Andrew. There are some really easy ways to submit testimony, and we hope you'll join us in that effort. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Molly. Yeah, definitely send that stuff in the chat. If you have bill numbers or whatnot, put that in there. We're saving the chat and sharing it with people. And I did also want to mention, we also have Josh Peterson on. He's going to be sharing with us a little bit about the the white paper that's been discussed throughout the past couple of days too. So thank you so much, Molly, for all of your work for this. It's the first time I remember when you brought the idea of an advocacy and a legislative kind of panel to the collaborative, and it wouldn't have been possible without you. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Timothy, how about you share some of us with what's up with ACLU and the things you're working on with the Smart Justice?
Thank you, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me here today. My name is Timothy Coble, and I'm a leader with the ACLU Connecticut Smart Justice Campaign. We are a legislative advocacy campaign with the mission of ending mass incarceration in Connecticut and eliminating racism in the criminal legal system. We do that by centering the voices and experiences of people who are formerly incarcerated and others who have been directly impacted by the criminal legal system here in Connecticut. I've been with Smart Justice for 2 years now, and I'm excited to update you guys on our legislative priorities this session. Our first legislative priority is going to be accountability for prosecutors, because prosecutors are among the most powerful figures in the criminal legal system. But until recently, there has been little transparency or accountability for the role they play. There are 13 state's attorneys in Connecticut, all serving 8-year terms and appointed by the Criminal Justice Commission. The legislature passed the first in the nation bill in 2019 mandating the collection of data around the decision-making of prosecutors. That bill was passed unanimously, and the first collection of data was reported in the spring of 2020. That bill will allow for data to be collected and evaluated and analyzed to see how prosecutors are prosecuting, if it's fair, if it's ending discrimination, if it's helping to end mass incarceration and reducing racism. Our second priority is, in alignment with some of the ones that Molly mentioned, stopping employment discrimination against people living with a criminal record. About a year ago, the Council on Collateral Consequences of a Criminal Record completed its first report, which identified over 500 legal barriers that exist in Connecticut for people with a criminal record, and nearly 2/3 of those related to employment. The council heard testimonies from people who were denied employment because of their record, or people that were actually hired and worked at a job for a period of time before their criminal record came to light. They were not let go because of anything they had done on the job related to performance. They were let go because of past criminal convictions. This bill will prohibit employers from discriminating against people on the basis of their record if the conviction is unrelated to the job, if the conviction happened a long time ago, or if the employee has proven rehabilitation under existing state law. And that leads me up to our final legislative priority for this session, the clean slate. People who have completed their sentence, paid their debt to society, and had no further interaction with the criminal legal system deserve to be able to live their lives without the shadow of a criminal record hanging over them for the rest of their lives. Smart Justice testified at a Judiciary Committee public hearing for Clean Slate in March of 2020, the same week that the state began shutting down because of COVID-19. This year, we're back again to finish what we started. I remember last year, I personally did testify in the legislature for the Clean Slate, and it was great. Smart Justice is pushing for an inclusive clean slate bill that automatically erases a record after a defined period of time and includes anti-discrimination protections to prevent someone whose record has been erased from being discriminated against because of their record. So those are our legislative priorities this year. The bills have all been raised, so they're going through the legislative process right now. I'd love to have more people who are watching and listening to get involved in the work we're doing. You can check out our website at acluct.org and join our action team. Next week, we'll also be holding a webinar on Wednesday, March 3rd to discuss our legislative priorities in a little more detail. And I would like to personally invite folks to come check it out. Thanks again for inviting me, Andrew.
Thanks so much, Timothy. We put some information on ACLU Smart Justice in the chat, and Gus is throwing the bill numbers in there too. And certainly if you share anything, we'll be able to share it with everyone. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. We're going to Josh Peterson now. There's been a theme running through this whole couple of days, a few themes. One of them is students getting involved and young people getting involved. And Josh is a student and was a former student working on the white paper with us. So Josh, why don't you run that through with us a little bit and tell us what's going on with the letter and what we can do with that.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Molly. Thanks, Timothy, for the update on all of that advocacy. It sounds great. And I know I personally hope to maybe get involved in some of that. My name is Josh Peterson. I'm Research and Development Officer at the University Network for Human Rights. We're a human rights advocacy organization based in Middletown on Wesleyan's campus. You heard from Jem earlier today, if you caught that panel, our director. And I just want to say very quickly about this white paper and an associated sign-on letter. We've authored this white paper with IMRP, Connecticut at the Crossroads, and it brings together perspectives on international human rights standards with the current situation in Connecticut prisons to argue for justice reinvestment, to argue for improved funding for reentry services, education, employment services, mental health and health services for folks who are reentering. It argues for more community involvement in criminal justice reforms in legislation. So a lot of the things we've been talking about here today. And part of this white paper, we have a sign-on letter. We're hoping that folks could quickly sign on to this, and we'll use this to bolster the findings of a report to just say that, hey, we have support from policy experts, support from people with experience in the legal system, support from community members, and use that to say that, you know, if Connecticut's serious about being a leader in criminal justice reform, then it needs to get on board with all of these fundamental principles in international human rights. And hopefully people in this room can use those human rights standards to support their own advocacy and legislative priorities in this cycle. So I will drop the links for both the white paper and the sign-on letter in the chat, and we can get those shared with you. And if you have any questions, I'll put my email in the chat as well. But thanks.
Thanks. James, Jim, you have any updates?
No, that's it. I mean, there's a link to a sign on. Josh, I don't know if you mentioned this, but there's 300 signers, different academic experts and folks from different organizations and some community groups. But wow, this is the group of folks most affected, the real experts. If you folks could sign on, it, just gives a little bit more oomph to what we're trying to say. And just to finish up by saying, it's really been, for me, it's my first building bridges, dynamic, engaging. Hats off to folks who've been doing this, DJ, Daryl, Andrew, everyone else. Stellar, really impressed. Congrats.
And you got signed up for more work too. We're testifying on Friday, I guess.
Oh, exactly. It's a cake eating contest, and I'm getting more cake because I want it. No, happy to do it. Happy to be involved. Happy to be of help as we can. And I'm speaking for Josh and the rest of us at Wesley and the rest of us on our team. So, thank you all, and happy to be part of this.